Hey, welcome back to Pause It For Me. Hey, Hannah, what's up?
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing good. You?
Awesome. I'm going to start out this episode by saying that we're recording on a new piece of equipment, which means a lot for us on the technical side, but it isn't going to mean that much to the audience other than the fact that I can now do things like this. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Firas Darwish.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very glad that you were able to join us here today. It was completely serendipitous.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, with better microphones, in fact.
Yeah.
Serendipitous for a couple of reasons. Number one, I didn't realize that you were going to be in town until recently. And then today just happened to be the day that we were recording the podcast, and also the day where you texted me being like, you want to hang out?
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then also serendipitous because we watched Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is a movie that was next on our list and also just so happened to completely coincidentally happen to be playing at a theater near us. So I texted you. I was like, you down? You were like, yeah. I was like, you want to be on the podcast? You were like, sure. We were like, all right, let's do it. So we saw it at the Bytown Cinema, came back recently, and now we're going to talk about it. But before that, I want you to get on your soapbox about The Whale, because you said you watched that on a plane recently and you're not impressed.
Yeah. So I was recently on a long flight from Warsaw to Toronto. It's about 8.5 hour flight, and I wanted to see what was up, what kind of movies there were. I was hoping to see some of the movies that garnered some acclaim from last year, because I missed out on a lot of those movies. I feel like every time I see the Oscar nominations, I'm like, I haven't seen most of these. When I was younger, I would make an effort to watch them. And I saw that Brendan Fraser won the Oscar for The Whale, and it was a movie that I was looking forward to. It got a lot of buzz. It was on the plane, and I was excited to watch it. And I was pretty disappointed, honestly. I kind of knew I knew what to expect, from what I understand. Like, going into it, I thought it was going to be some sort of maybe a redemption movie. Brendan Fraser's character, he's let himself go and he wants to reconnect with his daughter. It's not really a story that's new. I feel like we've seen a variation of the story. Maybe it's not always a morbidly obese character, but it's something. It's an alcoholic. It's a drug addict. It's someone who's obsessed with his work. An absentee father. It's a story we've seen, but it's like, how are they gonna, flip the story and make it original, make it interesting? And going into the movie, I was hoping that it would be more than just a movie that's carried by its lead performance, because I feel like the movie wants you to see the physical transformation, right? You want to see what Brendan Fraser looks like in the prosthetics, the makeup, the fat suit. And I was hoping that it would be just more than that. And personally, it wasn't. For me, I feel like as much critical praise Brendan Fraser got for his performance, and he won the Oscar for it, did he really do anything that I felt warranted that kind of praise? I don't know. I feel like if he looked regular, I might not have been as impressed. I wonder if the physical transformation kind of blurred or like augmented my perception of his performance. But I still think my issue with the movie is not that, the performance. It was just the way the story was structured. But before I go on, maybe you guys want to talk about what you thought of it before we get into the weaknesses, because I think we share some of the weaknesses.
It's been a few months since we saw it.
It's very melodramatic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's adapted from a play, and that makes sense because in a play, you're playing it big for an audience. In film, you have the luxury to be a lot more nuanced. And I don't know. I don't know if it really translates well. I don't know.
I mean, I of course love the performance by Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Hong Chow had a good performance, but every single thing I've seen Hong Chow in has just made me hate her. Because
what about a poker face?
Because she's always playing a jerk. In The Menu, she was just like completely insufferable. And in The Whale, she was an enabler. In Poker Face, she was funny.
Yeah.
But
not gonna hook up by.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm not on the Hong Chow train just yet.
She's fine. I just think she hasn't been given the right roles is all.
Yeah. I liked their choice to shoot it in 4:3. I
Mhm.
think that's
Yeah.
an interesting choice. And, I've heard recently that 4:3 aspect ratio, it's a good lens for close-ups. And I think this is a
Mhm.
movie that's definitely all about the performance. So I think that makes sense rather than shooting ultra wide to show just the
You don't need
disgustingness
to.
of his apartment.
Yeah.
So I liked some of the choices, but like, especially by the end, plot-wise, I was like, this isn't really offering me much.
Right.
No.
I also have a bone to pick about just like the religious aspects. Like I'm all for
Go ahead
like
and pick that bone.
I'm all for, constructive criticism when it comes to religious people and, all that kind of stuff, but I just felt like it was very one note, like just saying like that all religious people like hate gay people and stuff like that. Like they kind of painted that picture anyways, and I feel like that's unfair. Like they're
Mhm.
just like, oh yeah, Christianity is just awful, and it's like, well, maybe some sects of Christianity are awful and that one was awful, but like I don't know, I just didn't feel very complex to me.
I think it was more than just the presentation of religion as something that's anti, gay. I
Mhm.
think it was just like they found any reason whatsoever to kind of criticize religion, but a lot of movies have done it, I think, better.
Yeah.
It's usually a more nuanced take. Um, I think it's almost as if in this movie there was no alternative to the arguments that the movie brought on. It's like
Yeah.
religion bad. But like sometimes what a movie will do is if that's the take it's taking, then eventually there will be a turn of events or some realization where, an alternative side, an opposite side is brought in
Mhm.
that kind
Yeah.
of says, no, actually, it can be something else. And I think the
Yeah.
movie fails at doing this. Not saying that a movie needs to do this, but if you're going to be this antagonistic, like, don't make it look so forceful or so like in your face, like they spell it out for you. It comes off cringe. And like, I don't
Yeah.
think you have to disagree with the movie's take to have this opinion. I think even if you agree with the movie, it still comes off as forced
Mhm.
and cringe, in my opinion. And the only one instance where you could argue that they use religion to kind of come back um, is, I guess, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a turn of events that happens with the missionary character and
Mhm.
the daughter Liz, and how her actions result in a change in his life.
Mhm.
But even then, it's not religion that saves him. It's, the actions of an anti-religious person. And it's
Right.
like, so what kind of message are you bringing here? There's no nuance to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to attack a religious conversation
For
with
sure.
nuance. I feel like what a lot of storytellers sometimes tend to do is just to throw a total thumbs down at the whole idea of religion, probably because they got burned by it
Sure.
like in the past, which
Totally
is
get
which is
that.
fair. But there's just so many different facets to being a religious person, or just like having a religion by your side, that there's like there's so much to it that I find it strange to just cast a total like,
I feel
middle
like that's
finger.
what hurts the argument, though, is totally just a blanket statement of like, all Christians, all religious people like hate this type of people. Like that's not true at all.
And I think the movie doesn't even, like, in the context of the movie, right? The main character, Brendan Fraser, his Charlie, he's someone who's going through a dark path, and you can make the argument that what they're trying to do is that part of the thing that caused the issues is religion. But then you would think that, religion is something that, brings people closer. It gives people a sense of community. You'd think that maybe they're criticizing religion and then they're going to use it to kind of make a 180 degree, a turn in theme, or, maybe
Sure.
there'll be a realization. But like, that doesn't happen. And not only does that not happen, nothing else happens that causes a shift in Charlie's life or his outlook. It's like, some movies might use religion as an answer to, what's happening to the characters. But not
Sure.
only does this movie criticize religion, it does not offer an alternative. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. They taught us in like script writing class that all scripts need to have the main character learn something or change something by the end. I can't really recall what exactly, if anything, Charlie learned or changed his opinion on, which ends up being kind of a boring character. The only film that comes to mind in which a character doesn't really learn anything or change anything is Napoleon Dynamite.
I don't know. I could argue differently.
But I was going to say, you could argue that he does learn things. He learns maybe how to make friends, how to be a little more open.
Yeah.
But even so, they're not terribly overt changes. But I do think that is a movie where the main character doesn't have an obvious change. And the movie still works. And kudos to you, by the way, for pronouncing Brendan Fraser's last name correctly.
Oh, I didn't. What's another way that it's pronounced?
People think it's Brendan Fraser because they hear the show Frasier and they think it's Frasier.
But there's no I.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so.
But if you see interviews with him, he's always like Fraser, like razor, and he holds his hand up to his cheek like he's shaving.
What I do want to say is, I'm glad to see Brendan Fraser winning. Like,
sure,
yeah.
Regardless of my opinions, he comes off as such a genuine person in the interviews and he's been away from the spotlight. From he was at one point one of the biggest blockbuster actors, and he kind of disappeared for a while. And it's cool to see him coming back. He's gonna be in the new Martin Scorsese movie.
Ooh,
The Killers of the Flower Moon. I think it's with Jesse Plemons and Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. So all-star cast. It's nice to see him back.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad he's getting the praise because I do think it was a good performance. The performances all around were pretty solid. It's just the writing.
Yeah.
The actors had to work really hard. And I think that's a testament to their skill.
Agreed.
So yeah, I do want to say that.
Right on. Yeah. I grew up on Brendan Fraser. I grew up watching George of the Jungle and loving that movie, playing it over and over on VHS. And just before this podcast, we had a series of conversations where I'm trying to get you on board to watch Scrubs, and we just watched the first episode. Guess what TV show Brendan Fraser guest stars in?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hope you look forward to that.
Yeah. I do want to say one more thing before I forget.
Yeah.
We were talking about character transformations and how that is something, in script writing, that's something good. Now, I don't necessarily think a character needs to change, and I don't think you're saying that it has to change, but like, if a character doesn't change, then there has to be something in the movie that is nuanced and interesting take. Like, let's say the movie Whiplash, the main character, was his name Andrew?
Yep.
Yeah. He doesn't really change. The events of the movie, the trauma that he goes through, you would think that it would change him, but at the end, he still requires that validation. So you'd think the point of the movie is that he doesn't need the validation if it's so detrimental to his mental health. And then he ends up requiring that validation anyway. But it's done in a way that feels nuanced and clever, and the climax of the movie, every component adds up in a way that still feels fulfilling and satisfying. So it's not just when I criticize the writing, it's like, oh, the religious criticism is too overt and in your face. It's like, I think there are subtleties that are missing, something that makes it just a little more complex and nuanced. I think it's a very generalist take on this topic, and maybe because it is an adaptation of a play, in a play you kind of have to be theatrical, and and like it's even in Brendan Fraser's performance. So yeah, but if you enjoyed the movie, that's I'm glad, but I just thought it was all right.
Yeah. My reaction to it in my Letterboxd review was that there was a lot to love, but a lot to hate. And I was specific with my words. Not there's a lot to like and there's a lot to dislike. There's a lot to love and there's a lot to hate.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where you're like, this is an amazing movie, or you're like, this is a terrible movie. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Darren Aronofsky, like, I haven't seen The Wrestler, but from what I've heard, it's kind of similar. Like, he's done this before, this figure who needs to reconnect with a family member, and he's going through some sort of transformation or some sort of redemption arc. So this story has been done before by the same director as well. So if you're gonna do something familiar, do something interesting with it. And I don't think putting Brendan Fraser in a fat suit was enough for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
so why don't you tell me about your movie watching lately? Because your letterbox has not been, we've been friends for a long time, since like grade 6. And I've known you to watch a lot of like classic movies, a lot of things that are like really highly rated. But your letterbox the past few months to year maybe has had some questionable choices. How do you comment on that?
So I don't really have, I mean, you can make time for anything, but I feel like I don't have time for movies. So over the past few years, I've still been medical school. It's pretty tough hours. Not that I can't fit a movie, but like if I'm going to watch a 2.5 hour movie, I can't find 2.5 hours at once sometime. I can find
fair.
30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. So a lot of times when I'm watching a movie, it's because I'm watching something with my girlfriend or a group of friends want to go watch a movie. For example, I don't really I haven't been keeping up with the Marvel movies, but my friends were like, hey, we're going to go watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Do you want to come? I'm not going to say no. These are my friends. I want to go out in a social setting, and it seemed fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it may not be something that's for me, but I also don't want to deny myself the opportunity for a social outing. But in terms of me selecting movies for me, it's a matter of I need to find the time. But I have been trying.
Lately, I've noticed a bit of an improvement.
Yeah, I watched the Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh,
which
yeah.
That's great.
which was excellent.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in a book club, and we read a book called Normal People, and it has a mini series adaptation, which I watched, which was pretty great. And I've been trying to catch up. When I was on my flight, the other movie I saw was Triangle of Sadness, which is another movie from last year that got some critical praise. But for the most part, I've been, I just don't have the time. Like, the Christmas movies I watched are the ones that you typically watch, and besides that, it's just been spare. I watched the autobiography of Malcolm X because we read the book as well.
Have you seen that before?
No, I haven't seen it.
I feel like you had been talking about wanting to watch that.
I did see it before.
Okay,
just years ago.
Years ago. Yeah. And how was Bad Moms? I see you gave it 1 star.
I've seen Bad Moms.
Yeah.
Let me quote your letterbox review real quick.
Okay.
Firas, Bad Moms, 1 star. This movie is so stupid.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I mean, I think if I watched that movie now and I had to review it, I wouldn't change my score. But I think I'm just kind of over being overly negative. Like, it's one thing to be critical, but like I was just critical of The Whale, but I wouldn't say I was overly harsh or disrespectful. But I know what the movie is. It has a market. It's it's for a certain vibe. It was the movie that was selected during New Year's Eve because it was on Netflix, and it was a safe bet for the people I was around. We're not gonna watch, I don't know, the Requiem for a Dream. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So not gonna watch like a feel bad movie.
No,
Especially because like if you're stressing out like doing med school shenanigans all day, you
Yeah.
probably want to watch something a little bit light to take your mind off things.
Yeah, maybe not the Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
But-
definitely curious of your thoughts on Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Because what did you say when we sat down? Like you haven't seen a movie that came out earlier than 1990, and like what was the end of that sentence? I can't remember.
I think the oldest movie I've seen this year was Malcolm X 1992. I haven't seen a movie that was released before like the 70s in like many years. Like I think
Interesting.
the oldest movie I've seen in the past 4 years is The Godfather, which
Right.
is
Right.
like what, 70s?
Yeah, we watched The Conversation.
The Conversation,
Yeah.
Last
which
time
is
we were
around the
on
same time.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I haven't seen a movie in black and white that was made in a time where you only had black and white. Like there are black and white movies now, but
Yeah.
it's a stylistic choice. But I haven't seen
Mhm.
a movie from that era in a while. I think, the last movie around this era that I watched was maybe 12 Angry Men, and that was so
Oh
long
yeah,
ago.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of glad that you asked me to watch this, because when you said, "Hey, we're going to go to the movies," I was like, "Oh, cool, we're going to go watch Spider-Man." or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
something.
we saw Spider-Man like 2 days
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you were like, oh, it's a classic. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I haven't seen a movie like this in a while. You know, it might be fun. You know, it might be interesting to experience a movie like that again. You know, it's a different era.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into our thoughts on that in a little bit. We're going to take a quick little break, and we'll come back after a word from our sponsor.
With such a cold environment these days, it's more important than ever to stay warm while on the go.
What is
At the
this?
Nestle Corporation, your comfort and satisfaction are in our best interest, which is why we're introducing Heated Smarties. Our master thermodynamic specialists here at Nestle have unlocked the secret to temperature-based candy in being deliciously warm. The outside candy coating houses our newly developed chocolate recipe that heats itself when mixed with saliva. Let your taste buds tinkle in more ways than one with Heated Smarties. Heated Smarties are only available at the Stag Shop on Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. You must be over the age of 24 to properly enjoy Heated Smarties. Do not ingest Heated Smarties if you have a history with allergies relating to cat hair or barbecue sauce.
And we're back.
Where are the heated M&Ms at?
I wish. Yeah.
I'm more of an M&Ms guy.
Well, unfortunately, we only have
Oh,
Smarties
darn.
on offer right now. Hannah, thoughts?
Yeah. That was a commercial we recorded in college
Ooh.
before we started dating.
That was
We were
20,
friends.
2015. That was for a school project.
Oh,
And
man.
so as soon as I got this recorder that I can now, do things like this, I'm going to try not to abuse that too much. As soon as I got that, I was listening to other podcasts doing ad reads and stuff. And I was like, I wonder if I still have that Smarties ad that we did like 8 years ago.
I probably hadn't listened to it since then.
I know. And so I loaded up my hard drive earlier and I found it and I put it on.
Oh, man.
So, our first official sponsor, Heated Smarties.
I wish. Yeah.
So, we watched Treasure of the Sierra Madre,
Mhm.
which came out in 1948. Thanks so much
Mhm.
to Firas for coming along to watch this one. So, according to one IMDb, here is what Treasure of the Sierra Madre is about. Two down-on-their-luck Americans searching for work in 1920s Mexico convince an old prospector to help them mine for gold in the Sierra Madre Mountains. Directed by John Huston.
Mhm.
So, anyone want to start us off?
I had no idea that it took place in the 1920s until I read the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, that wasn't apparent to me.
Because I was thinking the whole time, like, Humphrey Bogart looked like Indiana Jones. And I was like, oh, in Indiana Jones, it takes place in, like, the 30s, 40s. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's, like, supposed to be the 20s.
If you told me this took place in the 40s, I'd be like, yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell the difference.
I had absolutely no expectations going into this, and I asked Faraz, and you said you didn't either, right?
I mean, I honestly, I wasn't expecting to like it.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Well-
because I haven't seen a movie like this in a while, and I'm like, am I in
Mhm.
the right mindset? Like, do
True.
I have too high of expectations based on,
Mhm.
I've been like, again, like some of the most recent movies I've seen are at earliest the 90s. The Godfather
Mhm.
was an anomaly. So like for me, it's like I haven't seen the classics of this era in a while. So I was kind of expecting to be let down
Yeah.
or, just not meeting the expectations that I have.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah,
sure.
did you have expectations going in?
I just wanted it to be better than the Maltese Falcon.
Right, because Maltese Falcon was directed by the same guy and starred Humphrey Bogart as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I didn't know what it was about at all, and I also didn't expect to like it because I found the Maltese Falcon really boring. And I think
Yeah.
even at the beginning of the last episode, I was like, "Oh, Treasure of the Sierra Madre is directed by the same person."
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty good.
It was pretty
What did you
good,
guys
yeah.
think?
It wasn't the best. I would have to compare it to The Good, the Bad. Oh my goodness.
The
Good,
good, the bad,
The
and
Good-
the ugly.
Yeah, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Shallow Grave.
I was
Kinda.
thinking about Shallow Grave a lot too.
Yeah.
Have you seen Shallow Grave for us?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think you should.
Okay.
I will say, I mean, I think a lot of people don't like Shallow Grave, but I do.
I thought it was good, but only because I was comparing it to Dead Bodies, which was terrible.
Yeah. Well, I also have a soft spot for Ewan McGregor. So
Don't we all?
so I think Shallow Grave is better than this, but maybe I'm biased. But I thought it was better than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Well, yeah, Faraz is shaking his head. I
disagree?
don't know if I liked it better than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because Treasure of the Sierra Madre, I would say the thing that I disliked about it the most was how long it was.
Oh yeah.
It felt long.
They could have
but
cut it down.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly feels, and probably is, so much longer.
Yeah, that's one thing that I didn't like about it.
I will admit I haven't seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in years, but I remember when I first watched it, I was like, okay, this is going to be a long movie, and I did not feel the runtime when I first watched it. Now, I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe I can't really compare, but I feel like even after seeing it for so many years, I can remember the characters. I can remember the music. It's all iconic. Now, a lot of it's because it permeates, the culture, maybe in more ways than The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and that's why I remember it better. But in 10 years, will I remember this movie the way I remember The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly that I watched 10 years ago? I don't know. But I will say that I did enjoy this movie. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected.
Yeah. Me too. So going in, I was like, I hope this is like an adventure film. I hope it's almost like pre-Indiana Jones.
That's what I was thinking it would be, but I kind of wish it was more Indiana Jones. Personally.
Well, just because he had a fedora on the cover, that's kind of what steered me in that direction.
Well, it's like treasure.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Totally. And so I felt the beginning was slow, but I was like, they need to set some stuff up here. So I'm gonna give it a pass for now. Then once they started the mining thing, I was like, oh, this is just gonna be like a quaint sort of mining story. And what I loved about this movie, the main thing that I loved, was that they kept upping the ante scene after scene. It's like, first it's one guy looking for a couple of coins, then it's two guys looking for work, then it's three guys who are going to start their own mining operation, and then a fourth guy comes in and wants to get cut in, and then the bandits come in and they got to protect their operation, and then they start, they leave, and then the jealousy takes over, and it's just like scene by scene, it kept gripping me more and more.
Yeah.
To the point where, like,
better towards the end.
Early in the film, I was still like very aware that I was in a movie theater, and I was gobbling up my snacks, and we were sharing chips and chocolate, and it was great. But by the time they were like leaving the mountain, I kept forgetting that I was in a theater, and I was just completely locked in to the story. So it was long, but I respect its longness for the most part.
Right. I don't know about you two, but I had sort of like an Uncut Gems moment where my like stomach was hurting towards the end.
With anxiety?
With the bandits, where it's like, what happened to the gold? Are they going to get the gold
Yes,
back?
yes, exactly. You could see the influence of this film permeate so many other films.
Yeah,
namely
all the shared DNA.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Indiana Jones, Shallow Grave, Uncut Gems, everything that we've mentioned so far. It feels like you can all trace various elements of that back to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like Uncut Gems, it's one of those movies where I don't think it could have ended any other way. Sure. And it be fulfilling and thematically conclude well, in my opinion. I think it ended really well. I think the last third of the movie is really strong.
Yeah.
I think if they got the gold back, it would have been more of like a classic Hollywood ending, and it wouldn't be as like, it wouldn't feel as long lasting modern wise, because in modern movies there's less happy endings. It's not as realistic. So it feels like it stands the test of time more. The
more Marvel movies that we get, and the more movies that appeal to mass audiences, the more I crave movies that don't have happy endings, because I just feel like I want something different.
Well, if you think about it, the Marvel movies are kind of like our modern studio era films. Because back in the day, they would have actors under contract to work and do a bunch of movies for the studio. So it's kind of the same thing, where it's like, this actor is under contract for this many years to do Marvel movies.
Speaking of actors, I appreciated Humphrey Bogart in this so much more.
Oh, he's so much better
than in any other movie that I've seen him in. Have you seen Casablanca?
No.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
that's a crime.
I feel like he
It's
was
just 'cause
wooden in it.
how much of a classic that is. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's okay in Casablanca. Maltese Falcon, I was like, get him out of here. Let's get Cary Grant in here or something.
Oh yeah.
But in this, I loved that he was able to throw away that like smooth talking, clean shaven persona, and he was able to like get crazy, you know, and grow out this hairy beard and like start losing his mind a little bit.
Yeah, that was fun.
And I'm assuming / I'm hoping that you guys picked up on the whole theme of early in the film. He says something along the lines of like, what gold does to a man once he gets it, you know?
And he says like, if I found $5,000, I would just stop there. I wouldn't need more. I'd be set.
Yeah,
And you know,
Right.
that sets up well how he transforms later on.
totally. I loved that character transformation. I found it so just like, nummy.
Well, him and Curtin, like it kind of foreshadows things when they work for that contractor and the contractor like swindles them and they're
Mhm.
like, this isn't fair, this isn't justice, we have to get our money back. And then like years later he's like kind of on the contractor side where he's like, well, you know, everyone for themselves.
Yeah.
So
You were saying that you read some of the Wikipedia page before this. I did not read the Wikipedia page. I just read trivia. Do you have anything that you wanted to share from that? Maybe about the production or just whatever you read?
well, I only read to a certain point, but it was based on a novel. I'm sure that's in the trivia. Also, the director's dad plays the old prospector. So I'm sure that's
Right.
also in the trivia.
Right. Well, so it did feel very novel-like when I
Yeah.
was watching it. Like I was like, I could totally see this as a novel. But if we want to jump into Andy's trivia corner here, Andy's trivia corner. I don't have that on the sound pad yet, but maybe someday. So first piece of trivia here. In his Oscar acceptance speech, Walter Huston, the father of John Huston, the director, said, "Many, many years ago, I brought up a boy and I said to him, 'Son, if you ever become a writer, try to write a good part for your old man sometime.' Well, by cracky, that's what he did."
Well,
I'm going to start saying by cracky.
I mean, yeah, that's great. He originally was supposed to be slated for the main role, but I guess he didn't have enough star power behind him at that point. Like Humphrey Bogart was like much higher star vehicle probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, Casablanca was before this, and
And the Maltese Falcon.
Maltese
Mhm.
Falcon, exactly, yeah. So, going off of that, Humphrey Bogart's portrayal of Dobbs in this film was cited by Steven Spielberg as the main inspiration for the character of Indiana Jones.
No kidding.
That is a bit strange because I can see that for like the first half, not really the second half.
Well, I mean, that's why he steals like an artist so well, is like you can see some of the shared DNA, especially in the look of Indiana Jones and maybe like the snark.
Mhm.
But, you know, it's not like an exact replica. He took the parts that he liked of it and then made it his own.
he made
Totally.
him likable and marketable.
Yeah, it's not like he made a 1-for-1 copy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe this is something you're gonna bring up, but so I hope I'm not stealing your thunder from your trivia.
Here, let me hand my thunder over to you. Here.
Thank you. So, oh,
You-
you shocked me.
Sorry.
Um,
It's just
so I
powerful.
read that actually Daniel Day-Lewis cited Humphrey Bogart's performance as an influence for There Will Be Blood.
That makes so much sense.
Totally.
I was
Yeah.
thinking about There Will
Yeah.
Be Blood like the whole time because
Yeah.
of the mining and stuff.
Yeah, and earlier when
Yeah.
you guys were saying how this movie influenced other movies like
Mhm.
Uncut Gems and Indiana Jones, I was about to say There Will Be Blood, but I didn't say it because I didn't want to sound like that's my original opinion. No, I just read it. But,
Fair enough.
But
Yeah,
it makes
yeah.
sense now that I've read it, and it makes, especially near the end of his the performance in the movie where he kind of loses his mind. It's very
Absolutely.
clear.
It's like this movie, Treasure of Sierra Madre, is like the original There Will Be Blood, the original Indiana Jones, the original The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Right, because I can't remember what his name is. I
Barney.
just remember in in There Will Be Blood. I just remember this is my son HW.
This is my son and business partner, HW.
What's his name?
HW.
Pave.
Oh, the character?
Yeah,
Daniel
the-
Plainview?
Yeah,
Plainview.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah,
like his
exactly.
character is like really selfish and all for himself, and that feels relatively similar to Dobbs, where it's like maybe
Yeah.
he started out kind of lowly, but the more he goes on, He's like, I'm just in it for myself.
Well, I feel like this brings up a good point of why this film was on our list to begin with, even though we knew literally nothing about it. And it's just because it has that place in history. You hear the name spoken all the time, Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Like, I feel like most people know that title of a movie, even if they don't know what it is, which was us. And obviously it influenced so much around it that came after it, that I'm so happy that we put it on the list.
For sure.
And I'm happy we followed through with watching it after the disappointment that was The Maltese Falcon.
I mean, it certainly hasn't been the worst movie on our list.
What would you say has been the worst movie?
Of this season of doing our history lesson?
Yeah.
Well, The Jazz Singer, but I feel like that shouldn't even be counted. Of the decent movies we've seen, King Kong is probably the most boring.
Did you feel like King Kong was worse than Maltese Falcon? There were some things I liked about Maltese Falcon. There's some things I liked about King Kong. It's a toss-up.
I don't know. I think at least the Maltese Falcon like revolutionized modern film noir. So like you can see the DNA in it of like Chinatown and any other show or movie that came after that, at least.
I suppose.
So
yeah. A couple more pieces of trivia to dive into. The movie's line, badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges.
Yeah.
I don't have to show you any stinking badges. Was voted as the number 36 movie quote by the American Film Institute.
No.
Not sure I agree with that one.
I'm pretty sure I don't agree with that.
I thought it was funny. I don't know.
It was
if
funny,
it's,
but, like,
the best of all time.
Number 36th best line of all time? Like, how dare you,
It
AFI?
certainly doesn't beat Rhett Butler and Gone with the Wind or anything. I
Oh,
don't know.
for sure.
There are better lines in this movie than
Yeah?
that one. Yeah.
Such
I-
as?
Gotcha there!
Hey, I didn't remember that one off the top of my head.
That's fair. But, like,
Yeah.
the Maltese Falcon also had an iconic line where a guy's like, what's that? And he goes, it's the stuff dreams are made of. And I'm like, okay, that line it sounds good in and of itself, but, like, in the context of the movie, it doesn't really, like, it's not that great.
Well, it feels like when the writer wrote that, he was patting himself on the
Yeah,
back.
totally.
Like,
It's exactly
this
what it
is
felt
a
like.
total mic drop. This is so deep. Like, I don't know.
Agreed. Yeah. All right. So, last piece of trivia that I got here. One of the first American films to be made almost entirely on location outside the United States of America.
It certainly shows.
Worth it. Yeah.
Because prior to this, everything looks very set-like. Whereas this feels a lot more modern, especially because they're in, like, the desert in, like, Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah.
It adds to the performance, you know, when they're, you know, working hard and sweaty and like the mine or the cave collapses.
yeah.
It feels real. It feels like I'm there.
Yeah, absolutely.
He dunks his head in.
This
Oh, yeah.
movie had a lot to offer. The sets were good, or like the set pieces at least. The acting was great. I thought the music was actually pretty good. Normally, I don't really notice the music in films like this,
I didn't notice it.
but I thought it did a good job of portraying mood. And it was pretty funny at
Yeah.
certain parts.
I like that part where
Yeah.
they ask, was he trailing you? Yes. How do you know? He's right there.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was
That's
great.
better than the other quote.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was funny when he was like, "Guys, want to get some beans?
Yeah.
Gotta eat a bunch of beans."
yeah.
Or like the end where they just
They're just
hysterically laugh.
laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, again, it's not the classic happy Hollywood ending, but it's not depressing either. It's like,
No.
it feels thematically accurate and the
Mhm.
characters are reacting in a way that kind of is a little cheerful.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like that episode of The Weekenders where they're like, when everything goes wrong, sometimes you just gotta laugh.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's totally that exact episode.
Mhm.
But I will say the funniest part of this movie was just after he gets his haircut at the beginning, and then Fraz leaned over to me when they're showing his haircut, and Fraz goes, "Whack." And I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty whack."
And maybe at the time it was probably the hottest, you know, cut on the block. you
Yeah, in
know?
the 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it looked kind of weird.
I will say the beginning had me worried because when I was
Me too.
when I was watching the movie, I was like, "Uh-oh, this is exactly what I expected." And
Yeah.
like for some reason, when I think of older movies, I feel like they're a little more simple and straightforward.
Mhm.
It literally feels like every line in a scene connects to the next. For example,
Mhm.
oh, you'll get paid when you get off the ferry. Literally, the next scene is them getting off the ferry,
Right.
and they're
true.
not getting paid. And then literally the next scene is like, they spot him on the street. Like it's so sequential that it feels mechanical and less interesting.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, but once the main action gets started, which is when they meet the older prospector, and they're like, we're starting our
Yeah.
gold journey, I think this is when the movie really becomes something special. The beginning
I
felt
agree.
a little too, like I said, mechanical and dry. And regarding the music, I was thinking about it because I wanted to think about aspects of the movie to discuss on the podcast. I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't think it was anything too memorable either.
Oh, it definitely wasn't
Mhm.
memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad. It was pretty good.
If I had to give one criticism, it's that this movie did something that I hate when other movies do, which is that they gave like pivotal plot information, dialogue that sets part of the story in motion to a character that speaks like very fast and very mumbled. And I'm talking about the
True.
prospector
I
character.
agree 100%.
Where
I didn't understand what he was saying at
yeah,
first.
it's like, why don't you tell us about prospecting? He's like, oh, well, get on the mountain and it's gold. And I'm like, did you catch any of that? Because I'm just,
No.
I can't read lips. He's got too big of a mustache.
Actually, when the movie was over, the row in front of us was like a group of 5, 6. They look in their maybe 20s,
Yep.
maybe early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And the first thing one of them said was, I did not understand what they were saying.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that was what was going to happen in the beginning because the
True.
prospector was speaking so fast. And like, I was like, what are you even saying? But thankfully it gets better. I don't know if I got used to it or the dialogue just became more intelligible, or
Yeah.
I think I just got used to it. I was like, okay, he's talking really fast. I can't be distracted. I need to make sure I'm following him, at least to catch the big words, the most important words.
Exactly. Yeah. And I won't lie. Like, part of the reason why I feel like I and maybe you two enjoyed this so much was because we did see it in a theater, and that kind of helped the experience.
For sure.
But one thing or a couple of things that it sucks about seeing a movie in a theater is you can't pause it and you can't turn on the subtitles.
Yeah.
And during
that
those,
was a big thing.
yeah, during those early scenes when we were having trouble hearing, as a joke, I turned to Faraz and I was like, yo, can you turn it up, bro?
Yo, can you pause it for me?
Yeah, exactly. Which, fortunately, because they had the speakers kind of quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine watching His Girl Friday in a theater.
Without subtitles.
Because, if you think
Yeah.
this movie was fast, like His Girl Friday was like double speed.
Another thing I was worried about in the beginning is there were almost extended scenes where the Mexican characters were speaking Spanish, and I was like,
Mhm.
there's no subtitles
No.
here.
Yeah.
But thankfully, they were either translated by another character or it was not important to understand what was going on.
Mhm.
So
You
I
can
do
pick it up by
that's
context,
actually
yeah.
a good thing that the
Yeah.
movie handled well, I think.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
agree.
They
Mm.
did that in Breaking Bad. I feel like they didn't have subtitles for the Mexican characters, right?
I think sometimes they did, maybe sometimes they didn't.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get to our rating, let's jump to our one and only recurring segment on the podcast. Gabe's grades. And let's hear Gabe's take on Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
An almost flawless mix of drama and humor, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre repeatedly ties your stomach in knots, building tension with scenes of greed, paranoia, and violence. Then, and always with perfect timing, it releases that tension with a deep belly laugh. 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Wow. It's
I just
high
want to
rating.
add, I brought 2 friends to see this at the Fox Theater in Toronto. We were all raving on the car ride home about how funny Walter Houston is in this film. Easily
The
one of the
prospector.
most memorable supporting performances in Hollywood history.
He won the Oscar.
Yeah.
He won the Oscar for this.
Absolutely. Well
Yeah.
deserved.
Absolutely.
Did a great job.
You guys agree with Gabe's take?
I agree with his take, but he always I feel like for classic films, he always gives things like a full star grade above. Maybe just because of prestige or something like that. He's like 4.5 stars. And I'm like, this is pretty good.
Maybe it just depends on the environment you see it in. I mean, he
I
saw it
guess
with
so.
friends. I
Yeah.
saw it with friends. That definitely elevated the experience, you know? I think 4.5 out of 5 is like, I can get behind that rating.
If someone
bit
told me
high.
that it's a 4.5, I'm not gonna argue with them. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd go that high. But maybe before we get into ratings, I want to ask you
Sure.
a question about one of the characters. What did you guys think of the character Cody, the guy who comes in, who
Yeah.
wants to get in on it? Like, because he comes in, he actually makes, in my opinion, a pretty strong impression.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he's only in the movie for a little bit, and then, spoiler alert, he gets killed off.
Mhm.
What do you guys think about him? Why do you think he was included? I'd like to think that it was kind of just to see how the characters would talk to each other about the 3 choices he gives them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very
Morality.
revealing
Mm-hmm.
that the choice they do come up with, and ultimately the choice doesn't matter. I think that was
Right.
pretty clever. What do you guys think?
I definitely loved his inclusion because I feel like when he shows up, that marks the spot in the story where things start to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the moral dilemma really interesting. I found that it grounded me back in my movie seat when they were kind of tugging at the heartstrings a bit and talking about his widow
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and
It
his
was
son.
sad.
So I definitely liked the inclusion of that character, and I thought it made sense to kill him rather than let that part of the movie drag on. But I do think the character was a means to an end. I think you're right. But I thought, like, when that character showed up and when that character died, that was part of what locked me into the movie for certain.
Well, it was also a foreshadowing when he died. There, Curtin and the prospector were like, "Oh, I'm good to give like a 4th to the widow,
Yeah.
whatever." And Dobbs is like, "No."
No.
So that kind of foreshadows later when he like decides to be really selfish, and they decide to take sort of the moral high ground. You know, and
Absolutely.
the karma bites him in the back. You know, so.
The only thing I would say is I wish he was there a little longer, because it would have made the reveal with his wife and kid maybe a little more powerful for me.
Yeah,
because it
that's
feels like
fair.
he was there for so short that it's like,
Mhm.
you want me to be a little more empathetic towards his family, and I am. It's tragic what happens, because we're led to believe that he's someone who maybe is out to deceive or try to you know, do something bad to the main characters, but
Mhm.
we kind of later, after he dies, we find out that no, he's just another guy who's down on his luck, who's trying to provide. So I did like his inclusion. I wish he was there longer, and it's just a testament to how much I like the character that I just wanted more of him. He did what he
Mhm.
had to do, and it made sense character wise, thematically. It evolved the 3 main protagonists. I really liked him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was surprised when he died so fast. And I was actually surprised at every single death or near death in this movie. Like when that character died, I was like, whoa, really? And then when Curtin was shot,
That was
I was like,
a good
I was like,
twist.
no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so surprised. And then when Humphrey Bogart's character was killed, part of me was like, oh, there's no way he's dead. But then also part of me was like, he just got like hacked in the face with a machete.
Yeah.
Like, he's definitely dead.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, oh wait, he just hit him with this. I was like, no, it's a machete. I was like, no way. Yeah, like it was so quick.
He got messed up.
He got messed up. Yeah. But this movie isn't graphic for anyone listening who's maybe a little worried. It's not graphic.
No,
at
they
all.
do everything off screen pretty well.
The Hayes Code, I feel like it was a lot stricter what you could and couldn't see, because I think it was before parental ratings. It was more like everyone can go see this movie.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
I also like the scene where again, like these scenes in the beginning that build this, that plant the seeds of the distrust that eventually
Yeah.
leads to the downfall of Dobbs. Like
Mhm.
when the lizard crawls under the stone, and
True.
Curtin, he's doing him a favor, but because of the paranoia that's already building up early on, it's like such a strong scene. Like I felt the tension in that scene. It was great.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Great use of tension building.
Mhm.
So I'd give this film an easy 8 out of 10 / 4 out of 5.
Mhm.
Maybe it would be higher upon rewatch because I would know more what I'm getting into, but I was pleasantly surprised.
I was pleasantly surprised too, just because, I don't know, the Maltese Falcon I had higher expectations for, so I had such low expectations. expectations for this.
Mhm.
I don't know. The beginning was maybe a little bit still too slow, but overall, it was a great movie, and I really loved the reveal when Dobbs had his head ducked and the bandits came up, and you could see the bandit in the reflection.
That was an amazing
Yeah.
shot.
That was an all timer.
Yeah.
So I'll give it like a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. I'm with Hannah. I'm like in the, I guess with you two, you gave it 8 out of 10. I'm in that 3.5 to 4 out of 5. The reason is like the strong scenes are really strong, but I still feel like there were some scenes like in the beginning and some scenes like they make sense in terms of the plot and the characters, but they're still not fun for me to watch. Like there's an extended scene where the older prospector is like helping this child in this community, and in this way he builds trust within the community, and that kind of
Mhm.
it matters in the plot later on.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
is that scene slow? In my opinion, yes. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
For sure.
There are a lot of scenes like that. Like there's a scene where they're, on the train and all of a sudden they're ambushed by
The bandits.
the bandits.
Yeah.
And it's a shootout. Is it it's probably very exciting for the time,
Sure.
but now watching it, it's like it makes sense because the bandits have to be established as a threat. But is that scene impressive to me? It's okay.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
there are a lot of okay
They
scenes.
could have cut that scene, I think, because later
Well-
on there's bandits with Cody from Texas.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I suppose so. I feel like I agree with maybe what you're saying is that I don't know if any scene could have or should have necessarily been cut out completely, but a lot of it could have been cut down.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
also like the movie shows its age, of course, obviously, but like the bar fight, the punches sound like nothing.
Andrew turned to
it,
me.
it sounds like
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend where they do a little music video with a song called Real Life Fighting is Awkward, where they cut between like fake movie fighting that's like all choreographed and then real life version of the fight where they're just like throwing awkward punches and like hitting each other in the ear and they're like, ow.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it felt like. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I will say this: the protagonist's employer, he put up a fight. For a 2-on-1, he almost won
sure.
that fight.
Yeah.
So good on him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that scene in particular and others, I feel like I'm getting more of a sense of this the more we watch older movies, is like any scene that's long enough to make the viewer kind of like zone out a little bit and then they zone back in and they're like, oh, are we still in this scene? That's a sign that you should cut it down.
Yeah.
It needs some
Modern
fat needs to be
editing is a
trimmed.
lot faster in general.
Yeah.
I feel like in older movies, it's a lot more like, let's just show people driving for 10 seconds. And it's like, why?
Yeah, why? Yeah, especially Vertigo in particular.
Yeah, it's
We
like
commented on that.
the camera's pointed, and we don't want to make too many cuts, so the scenes I guess end up being longer.
Mhm.
But yeah, other than that, I would say I honestly would go with the 4 out of 5 just out of respect.
Yeah.
I feel like the highs are so high. Will I ever see this movie again? I don't know, probably not. But what this movie did is it excited me about this era of movies, and I am less hesitant to watch movies of this time.
Mhm.
Now if you're like, oh, Casablanca, I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. There has been some good 1940s movies that I think stand the test of time, like Rebecca and His Girl Friday.
Citizen Kane.
Those are
even.
great. Yeah, Citizen Kane.
We just watched
Yeah.
Citizen Kane for the first time. Have you seen Citizen Kane?
No.
We just put out, I don't think you've listened to it, our Citizen Kane episode. We just put it out like a couple weeks ago. It's, I can see why people talk about it.
Okay.
I think there's a lot there to chew on. I don't love everything about it, but
No.
I think there's definitely cultural significance for it
Right
in the
on.
zeitgeist. Yeah.
I mean,
Cool.
they made a movie about the making of the movie, right?
Did
With Mank, with
I guess they did.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but
Mm.
maybe at some point I will.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, Firas, for joining us here today. I really appreciate the fact that you stepped up to the plate and were willing to come on the podcast. And I'm glad that the timing just worked out.
yeah. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. Audience members, tune in next week. We are going to be watching, actually next 2 weeks from now, we're going to be watching The Red Shoes, also from
Ooh,
1948.
In color.
Is it in color?
Well, the poster.
Do you guys think that at some point, AI will just colorize all these movies? Do you think that's a good
Who
thing?
needs it?
Yeah.
Well, some of them were like in playback, they were colorized for television or whatever,
okay.
but it still looked weird, you
Mhm.
know? Because it's like you're colorizing black and white. I guess maybe with AI it would look better, but I think stylistically, sometimes black and white can be fun.
Mhm.
So,
Right
I-
on.
I do like it. I mean, they the Bong Joon Ho re-released Parasite in black and white because he felt like the black and white added something, I guess, to the themes of the movie. I haven't seen it in black and white, but
I'm-
it is something that a lot of directors are doing now.
yeah, I get the appeal of it. Like, I love the lighthouse, but for Parasite, I'm not sure because there's one scene where it's like pivotal that you see something that's like a character like holds up a napkin,
Yeah.
right? Where it's pivotal, you see what the color is for the context. So I'm like, black and white? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Logan, I think Logan was also released in black and white, and that I guess I can understand. But Mad Max Fury Road was also put out in black and white, and that is a shock to me because the color in that movie is awesome.
I mean, I love color in movies.
It's like, imagine if they released Blade Runner 2049 in black and white. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so Mad Max, you mentioned, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. It takes away, I feel.
Yeah.
Like the yellow of the movie, it gives off the heat and the energy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm more for people going into a movie knowing like, okay, we're making this black and white. So like for the lighthouse, they used like film stock and they shot it really, really bright so that the black and white like contrast would be correct and stuff. I feel like shooting a movie in color and then deciding to make it black and white later, I don't think that's the same as all. Like,
Right. Well, the Red Shoes, it does seem like that's in color.
it's exciting.
It's also over 2 hours, so
Well, maybe it'll be worth it.
yeah. So yeah, looking forward to that. I have absolutely no expectations. It was a recommendation to put on the list by Gabe. He also gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars.
I've heard good things about it, so
I haven't heard anything about it. So anyway, tune in to that next time, and we'll see you later. Thanks so much
See
for
ya.
listening.
Bye.